Hey everybody, Danny out of Thunder here. Cthulhu is now here, so this is the patch notes for 7.6 along with the 7.5 bonus thing. We're going to do this a little bit out of order. We're going to go over Cthulhu first, because that's according to YouTube numbers and all the hits I've been getting. Thank you for that, by the way, for everyone who has been subscribing, watching, most of you that have been commenting lately. We'll get right into this first, then we're going to go into the bonus notes, then we'll get into the rest of the notes. So, Cthulhu is a guardian. His passive breaks down the mental fortitude of enemy gods, applying stacks of torment with abilities in the final hit of his basic attack chain. If you get 4 stacks, enemies go insane. Additionally, Cthulhu gains magical power per nearby enemy god with insanity, which is 25. So we can gain up to 125 magical power. That's more than everything except for Rod of Tahuti in an ideal scenario. But it usually means that he has at least 25 going on. Now he can apply it fairly reliably too, so he's going to do some good damage with this. Insanity means that there's little like tentacles and eyeballs that are floating around the field. And it also means apparently you'll hear like Loki vanish, you'll hear various sound effects like blinks and whatever, even if there's no blink and no Lokis. Those are the examples they gave. I really like how they did the insanity, where it's not too oppressive. You definitely know something's happening, but it's not a CC that's super oppressive. It does help Cthulhu because of the magical power. We'll see. I don't really like the idea of phantom sounds that much in the game, but hopefully it's not super oppressive. His first ability is a cone sanity break. This looks like it is meant to be possibly his wave clear, although the Mire might be. Actually, no, because it's on such a shorter cooldown. This is meant to be the first thing to level. He sends out a blast of energy. Enemies do reduced damage to Cthulhu, so he gets mitigation against targeted enemies, so he can mitigate a shitload. They have an attack speed slow. They didn't mention that. This ability applies torment. If they are already insane, they are feared, which good, they did include that. But it can also fear, attack slow, and it mitigates incoming damage. So you put Cthulhu on top of a hunter, and they just can't do shit. Successfully consuming insanity permanently increases the base mitigation of the ability. They don't go into how much it mitigates. So it doesn't. They don't really tell you how much it can scale up to. I don't think. I think it might be up to 30%. But we'll see how it works. I'm not sure that means it's going to mitigate. Like I can mitigate 20% of this guy, 21% of this guy, 28% of this guy if I've applied the stacks. It doesn't really. They don't really quite explain that. The second ability is the Mire. This creates a shot that there's an inner circle and it grows, and there's a second shot. So the first shot is a 10% slow, and the second is a 35% slow that he has to channel. And it's also a... So wait. First shot also slows enemies. Both hits playing a stack of torment, but it's not... Actually, I would have to look into this a little more about how the 35% slow works with the root. Not sure on that one, to be honest. It seems like it might just be a slow field that roots if you got hit twice. I think that's what it is, but this damage value applies 2 times. Rushing Terror, he creates 2 projectiles by his side. It's a dash, so this is his escape. Stuns and knocks away enemies hit. Projectiles follow behind him. I think if they, I believe they knock towards the center of the ability. It is a very short stun. That's kind of interesting. So I'm not sure how easy it is to chain like a hit with you and then a hit with the projectile, but it does seem like that's possible. So this is actually 410 plus 60% magical power, which is a lot. Descent into Madness, this gives him... he reveals his true form, plunges in the battlefield, into relief while enemies caught nearby are damaged. Oh, so the initial transformation will damage. Okay, cool. Enemies near him start gaining torment passively, increasing if they're facing him. They suffer the debuffs of Sanity Break, causing them to deal less to Cthuhlu as well. This translates to basically Cthuhlu in dead Cthuhlu waits dreaming. So it does this damage. He gains up to 30% maximum. Sorry, gains 30% health, and it lasts for only 12 to 16 seconds. It's not quite as long as I thought it would be. Debuff radius is a little bit shorter than a auto attack, and he gets a lot of mitigation during his damage mitigation during his cast. So he doesn't have a basic attack, but the first ability replaces it. It does 350 plus 30% magical power, and it produces protections. It's on a 1 second cooldown, so you can basically just keep swiping, and it's kind of a unique hitbox. It's like it's a rectangle, but it's tilted, so it's basically a diamond shape. And then he can just keep swiping. It's a right-hand swipe, so that's how that works. It's listed as 3 item. It's listed as 3 projectiles, basically, but it only can hit with 1 on any given time. Devastate, this is kind of simplistic. This is just a projectile that knocks opponents up. It's on a short cooldown, so you'll get at least 2 uses out of this every time. Not a lot of magical power in that, though. That's kind of odd. Transfuse, this is really his only defensive ability he gets. He loses health, but he heals his team, gives them power and movement speed, and damages nearby enemies. Cthuhlu loses health, but remember, you get 30% HP. So that's... we'll see. I don't know in practice how much mitigation you're going to be able to get. If you can get reliably 20% mitigation to 30% mitigation the whole time while you're in your ultimate, you're going to be able to shrug off a ton of damage as Cthuhlu. Either way, this kit wasn't quite what I was thinking it would be. By the way, when Cthuhlu transforms, he is the biggest thing in the game. His base model is a little taller than the Pyromancer, but when he transforms, he is like the same height as the trees in the game. He is the same height as the forest. He is fucking colossal. I think there's a lot to be really excited for in this kit as a brawling frontline tank. He's not great at diving. That's the only thing I'm noting. He's not really amazing with his dive potential. He doesn't gain any movement ability. He has no movement abilities in his ultimate. But if you can get into the back line, so I think you're going to want to get teleport. If you're going to solo with him, teleport and blink are going to be your relics. So I think that's what you're going to see with him. I think that's what I'm going to start trying, blink second relic, because you need a way to just blink, descend into madness, and then everyone's fucked. Everyone dies. So we'll see how that goes. So this is the bonus balance is going to come up in 2 weeks. For those of you who've never watched me do patch notes before, I don't give a shit about skins. I don't really care at all. Thank you, Olympians, for telling us Aphrodite was good. I guess the Olympians are the only people that watch the Smite Pro League. She is losing 15% magical power scaling off of her healing from Lovebirds. Not the damage, just the healing. And she's losing 10% of her scaling off of Back Off. So I believe that is up to 14% scaling if you hit with both. That's pretty big nerf to her. But Aphrodite was really is oppressive in very good hands. So I think in the case, if you have a good Aphro, like everyone in the Pro League has, you just don't get to play her because she just chooses a character and says, yeah, my teammate doesn't die ever. So I think this helps, especially with Back Off being, you can let that character dive, you never let them get killed, and they can just do that damage anyway, so you're getting a shitload of scaling, and just killing everything. Now that's not going to happen as frequently. I think Aphrodite is still okay. I think she's in a much better place, but I think you're going to be able to. They're going to see that you're going to be able to pick her in the meta now. She's not going to necessarily be a first ban with character. Still a first half pick in the pro leagues. I just don't think she's going to be that oppressive. The Olympians, being geniuses again, realize Persephone's fucking broken. So let's just work on her passive, because that was the problem. She now loses 60% of her damage rather than 50, because that's a number that's very logical and fluid. And she's now slowed by 20% during the duration of her passive. This doesn't matter. This was not why she was ridiculous. If she dies, she's already next to an enemy, so she could already hurt them. She could already hit them with all of her shit. So this doesn't matter. None of this is. These are nerfs. These are not relevant nerfs. Persephone is still busted. The only reason you don't see her in the Pro League is because Smite is on Unreal Engine 3, which I believe is like 10 years old at this point, and is put together with Silly String and Hope. And in the light of this pandemic, there is no more hope. Raijin, this was a nerf that the Olympians didn't come up with, because this is a good nerf. Taiko drums have 20 less damage, but they're going to scale up to the late game. Just fine. I like this change. Raijin, I think, was always is good. I think he's a little overvalued, because I think the biggest value of him was just that he was safe. He is safe. He's reliable, and he has artillery range and can do a lot of damage. 480, and I think it's plus 120 scaling. I think it's 30% scaling per hit. 480 damage at level 5 is a ton. So I think that nerfing this is a good change. It doesn't change his late game at all, where he's still good, but not amazing. You're not picking Raijin because you want him at level 20. So I think this is good. Chiba Lanka is getting a nerf as well, because I guess not giving him the stun on his ult wasn't enough. Decrease in the damage on branching bolas from 40 to 35%. Increased mana per shot is up by 2 at every rank. Chiba Lanka is fucked. If he doesn't have his branching bolas, he can't clear effectively. And now that you can no longer get level 1 sustain off of Hunter's Blessing alone, he is always going to be burning through mana at a rapid rate. You pretty much have to start Transcendence with him. He is screwed. This has killed Chiba Lanka. He's out of the meta. Let's see. This is more shit that I don't care about. Some of these look pretty good, though. I like the Ymir skin, to be honest. Let's see. Increased punishment points in several cases if only one player reports. Game modes with fewer than 5. Sure, whatever. Gameplay. The Olympians were all fucking terrible at this game, because they said that we needed to have health point numbers on the jungle camps and minion. So that way you know how much health they have at all times, so you can do things to them or defend as necessary. This was unnecessary. This is ridiculous. I don't know why they wanted this. I assume it's because they're all shit. I'm not saying I'm that good, but let's keep some vestige of challenge in this fucking game, will ya? Arena. Arena is gonna get a new Releth map. It looks really cool. I had kind of wondered if it would be possible to make the background and the scenery for Conquest something that's like an equipable item. So I would actually really like this in Conquest. You could not change the minions. You couldn't change lane minions. You couldn't change jungle creeps. Sorry, that's what I meant by minions. You couldn't change the jungle bosses. You couldn't change the Titan. You can't change anything that like other players have to interact with. But it would be nice if you could change like the landscape or the towers or what have you. Not the towers. That's something you had to interact with. Like the forest and the walls and all that. I would have really liked to see that. I don't think you can do that. I understand that they probably never will. But I would be willing to actually pay. And I never say that I'm willing to pay anything on this game. I would be willing to pay money to be able to have the Lovecraftian horror theme stuff in Duel that I don't care about. Totem of Ku is getting a 5 gold buff on Conquest. every time it's procced. This was what it used to be. They nerfed it along with the MP5 nerfs. Now that's actually better in that 10 to 15 minute range because it's 30 MP5 now. I don't know if they needed to do this. Solo is really the least impactful position in Smite, which is why I've largely switched to mid when I can get it. I'm more comfortable as a solo. If I was ever going to play on any sort of community league or anything like that, I'd play as a solo. But solo just really doesn't have an impact on the game. So I get why they do it. I just don't think it's going to change it. Warrior's Blessing is getting a huge overhaul. So it's going to give 10 magical and physical protections. And it's going to decrease the mana that you get. So you're going to, the nerfs, it's going to no longer give 3 flat reduction. And when you hit someone, it's only going to give you 25 health and mana. So at best, it's only, what is it? 12 MP5 and HP5? 12 and a half MP5 and HP5 if done optimally, which is a big hit to survivability and sustain. So Colin is going to get a big buff because of the flat damage reduction. Any god that relies on a lot of little hits is going to see a big increase in their boxing potential, even without that. And gods that have a lot of sustain in their kits innately, like, say, for example, Tyr, they're going to see a buff as well. So I think those are the types of characters who like this. But whenever you hit a god every 10 seconds on the same timer as the health and mana, the enemy you hit takes 25 damage. So they're increasing the lethality in solo dramatically. So you're then going to get 25 total prots off of Warrior's Blessing when it's evolved. What this does is it makes characters that rely on lots of little hits a lot more effective. Namely, Kakulin is the first one that comes to mind with the Vent Anger. And it's going to increase the lethality in solo at the expense of survivability. There's going to be a lot more boxing and a lot more bloodshed. And it also, this will make the rotation from the solo on an early gank much more impactful. So this might help a little bit for solos like a Thor or a Thanatos because you're going to do that extra little bit of damage. Baron's Brew, not a big change. It's going to do the same thing as Chalices now. The Katana is getting 50 gold off. Good change. It makes a lot of sense. That way you can get either 3 pots or you can get Hand of the Gods, which I don't really think is necessary on jungle. Not the worst thing ever, but I don't think it's necessary. And a pot. Golden Blade is getting a big buff. This is a 200 gold deduction and more attack speed. I don't think it needed the attack speed. I like the decrease in cost, but now I wonder if this is just an overstated item because it just makes your jungle clear instantaneous. It's just going to make everything so quick and smooth, and it's barely a bridge item at this point. I think this might be an overstated item, but I like the idea. Movement speed. Movement speed can be a fun but very powerful stat. When it becomes too easy to stack and build, it can disrupt the pace of not only rotations, combat. Solo Patrol build is getting a lot of play. So they're nerfing the items that made it work. And also, junglers are going into Talaria boots, sacrificing like 30 power, 25 power over Warrior Tabi just to be able to rotate a little bit better. So that's like the rise of like characters like Reiki and Vamana in solo who don't really rely on their scaling as much. So 3% nerf to Traveler Shoes and Talaria boots. Wingblade. So every item off of the non-offensive, the utility blade tree. I don't remember the first item of it's called. Are getting movement speed nerfs. Wingblade, Relic Dagger, Toxic Blade, Witchblade, and Adventurer's Blade are all getting a 3% movement speed nerf. Witchblade and Toxic are really niche anyway. Relic Dagger is pretty popular. Wingblade is kind of a counter item. I would like to see a little bit of it, because this is a pretty potent nerf. I'd like to see maybe like 50 more HP, maybe just on Toxic and Witchblade, because you never really see Witchblade bought too much anyway. Or maybe increase the effect of the passive to 25% reduction in attack speed. You don't see enough Witchblade. Gods. Amuse and Cobb is getting buffs. Hive decreased cooldown from 14 to 12. Swarm increased scaling from 70 to 80. I think the buff they need to give is that Amuz and Cobb can place 2 hives back to back and store 2 charges, like Pele. I think that would, and keep the limit you can have on the field at 6. But if someone, destroys a hive instantly, you can put one back up. They destroy that one. He can do that. So it's a little bit harder to remove this effect from Amuz and Cobb. So he almost always has it. I think that's really the better change. And leave it at 14, or maybe make it 16 seconds. But you give him 2 stacks of it. If I see that happen in the future, by the way, Ajax, I'd like some royalties. Baba Yaga, they're clarifying that Creeping Cabin has hit detection. It has a hitbox. You cannot pass through it. You can shoot through it, but you cannot walk through it. Okay. Home Sweet Home, you can now basically drop things that are on top of yourself, which is a good buff and it makes a lot of sense. And now, for whatever reason, the house has no movement speed penalties when moving in any direction. That's a little weird, but okay, we'll take that. Blast Off is now knockback immune and has damage reductions during the pre-fire animation. Also a good change. I still think the problem with Baba Yaga is that you never know what she's doing, and you have to relay so much information to your team that it's never going to be worth picking her up unless she's ridiculously overstated. Put all of the effects on her first ability that trail it leaves behind as positive buffs, so your team always knows that no matter what it is, it's going to be something good that they want to walk over. And then just make like 4 or 5 or 6 different pretty potions with her too. That way she knows how much it's going to slow, she knows how much it's going to damage, she knows everything about its effects. That way you're not guessing. That way you don't have to like calculate this. That way you're not on the fly thinking, oh well, it's going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So just that way guys, and so you can prioritize, who do I want to hit with this? I know that making the game a little bit simpler isn't always good, but I think in this case, you're still having plenty of complexity. Baba Yaga has to relay what's the shape, what's the effect, what kind of effects do I have? That is what she needs. And I think, Home Sweet Home, her ultimate does tons and tons of damage, but that's not enough. So many characters do shitloads of damage with all of their abilities. Chronos, Freya, and Soul, I guess all everyone already had the faster ults. Faster basic, not sorry. Yeah, it was. Okay. I just can't read, or I don't bother to read. So Chronos, Soul, and Freya are getting a projectile speed buff. I didn't realize they were different. I'm dumb. So they're going to be changed to that, which is a good change because they're really hunters that do magical damage. And then they're going to get some changes on top. Accelerate another 5%. I'm very surprised we haven't seen for Chronos. I suppose it's just because he's hard. He's easy to gank, but because all these games have tended to go late in the SPL, Chronos is one of the best scaling characters in the game. I'm very surprised we haven't seen him. Hopefully, a little bit more movement speed. Excuse me, at the start, I think he goes up to 35 or 40%, but he's going to start at a higher spot. That's going to help him be a little bit safer in lane. Fenrir getting 2 seconds off Brutalize, it doesn't matter. That's not his problem. That's really not the reason that Fenrir is bad, that he doesn't have Brutalize up often enough. Come on. Freya is getting the attack speed, projectile speed buff. The Olympians have no idea how to play the game again, of course. So hitting a god with Turn of Fate provides 2 stacks up to their maximum of 6 of the damage buff. I believe it's up to 6. But Ganesh was fine. Ganesh is in a good place. He was already doing a lot. So I can't imagine, like, oh, an extra 1% damage. I can't imagine that's ever going to be the reason it's a problem, but whatever. Guan Yu is getting some effects so that everyone knows where his passive stacks are, which is fine. I think that information is good to have. Isis is getting 5 more damage on her Wing Gust at ranks. I don't think this really affects her biggest problem. Her main problem is that she is kind of shit into healers. She does not proc Divine Ruin very well. She has to get very close. She does very well early, kind of, but in these poke battles where healers thrive, all she can just do is toss a spirit ball out. That's not a lot. So I think that's the problem, and I think if you nerf healers, you'll see more Isis being played. Nemesis is getting more power off the passive more quickly, but it's only a 1% gain overall. I don't think this is going to move the needle too much for her. I'm not sure exactly what would. This isn't it, though. We'll see. I think Nuwa's already in an okay spot. She's definitely playable. You do see her a little bit in the SPL, but they're going to increase the range that clay soldiers dash, which is a good buff, and they're also going to improve the hell out of their AI. AI improvements are always a crapshoot. You never know exactly how good they will or will not be. Artemis one, from my understanding, I don't really play Hunter that much anymore. It was a good change and put her in a pretty good position. We'll see. And if they have the same level of effect, I think Nuwa is going to go into firmly in the meta territory, especially because she works very well in that late game meta. Soul is going to get 5% magical power, which I think is a pretty good buff, but she's also going to get the attack speed projectile buff. Attack projectile speed buff. Is 5% more magical power, considering Soul has been relatively trash, worth it? Who knows? We'll see. But I think if this can't really get her into the meta, or at least on the fringes of it, she's gonna need something really big, because they didn't do too much to increase her damage potential. This one increasing her damage potential, but they really made her a lot easier to access all that. And I don't think that's a bad thing in this case. But we'll see. Terra is getting a buff for some reason, decreasing the pre-fire time from basic from half a second to 3/10. Terra is always going to be a character that's going to be hard to play, but rewarding for pros. So, because the pros are always going to be able to get value out of Terra, it's going to be very hard, because if you make it so that everyone's good with her, she's going to be first ban material in the SPL. If you make it so that only the pros are playing her, but not all the time, she's going to be very much worthless in lower ranks. So I don't know if this really matters to her. This is not a needle. This really isn't a game-changing buff. But I'm not sure if Hi-Rez gets that. This is a character that rewards skill, and let's just face it, players like me suck at this game. Zhang Kui, one of the few characters that I have as a diamond, is getting a buff. Decrease max souls, but increase soul protections per stack from half to 1. Total protections is going up from 30 to 40. I think this is better than it actually used to be. They say it's a revert, but I think this is actually better than it was. I think it was 50 to get to 40 protections. I think it used to be 8/10, not 1. So we'll see. This is a buff. I think the bigger problem was when they increased the cooldown on his poke. That's really kind of what fucked him. The card flying thing. That was really the nerf that put him in the ground. So we'll see what happens. I think Zhang Kui's probably in a better spot, but really only as a solo lane character. Is it enough, though? Who knows? Anyway, enough of me talking. That will be it for this patch. Let me know what you think in the comments below. There is going to be a text version right underneath here if you want that. Let me know what you think of that. Is that something that's helpful to you? To either way, make sure you hit like, subscribe, take care. Catch you all next time.